All right. He is our entertainment attorney, James Walker, the author of this business of urban music. I got it right this time. Right Welcome, as always, a regular contributor. We know we were doing a little salsa here in the first segment, then we had Scott Gray out with sports. So now we have to wrap things up with a little entertainment talk. Sure. P. Diddy, a major lawsuit, $12 million, a former employee who insists that she contributed to his success, suing him for $12 million, saying age discrimination, that she had gotten sick, got old, and then he kicked her to the curb. What's happening there?
Very serious lawsuit. Puff Daddy, Diddy, Sean Combs, Sean John. He's been in a number of legal battles over the years, but I think this is probably the most serious of all. And here's why, aside from the criminal matters that obviously Johnny Cochran, rest in peace, handled for him. Aside from the criminal matters, this is a very serious matter because Francesca Sparrow is one of his high-ranking soldiers, if you will, or lieutenants. And she had met him 20 or 30 years ago and started working with him in '98. And she really helped him build the empire that he has now.
But so, she's 50-something now, 53 years old, I believe, 51.
I think.
Right, so, I mean, she's still a young lady. Where does age come in? And now she had hip surgery, and is claiming that when she had hip surgery, she couldn't get along as well. And accordingly, Sean Combs said, well, she can't move around as much, so therefore it's time for her to go. But this thing smells wrong to me. Something is odd. And she also conceded during the surgery that she had a drug relapse.
I think it was painkillers.
Okay, well, whatever she said it was. So you wonder, reading between the lines, whether there's more to than what she's saying. That did she have other issues besides just her age? If she had a relapse, whether it's painkillers or whatever, it just seems a little flimsy to me, if you will.
Well, I don't know if I would say that. I would think someone who's been your soldier and lieutenant for this many years, who brings this kind of serious action for $12 million, I would think you would want to settle with them. I wouldn't take it. If I'm advising Puffy, I would not say this is flimsy or... I would think
settling and it being true are two different things, you know, right? Him settling to have it go away and having any shred of truth to it are two different things, right? So you want to spend your money on lawyers and going back and forth, but as far as credibility, I mean, she's 51, right, and is, I don't know, that's still a fairly young age.
Yeah, but apparently the allegation is, I'm 51, you fired me to hire someone 10, 15 years younger than I, who had less skill set, less promise, and basically took my job and not qualified. And I think...
Is that his purview? If he's the owner of his company, then he had the right to pick and choose who works for him. If you have an aging executive or someone who's, forget the aging, if you have an executive who you think is not working as well as you thought she should be, and someone comes in and has to be younger, don't you have the option to say, hey,
well, no, I think the flip side is, how do you fire someone who's helped you build arguably $100, $200 million empire? How do you fire somebody who helps you produce 4 or 5 hit shows for MTV, a successful clothing line, a successful record label, negotiate a $38 million deal with Warner Brothers for your distribution and other things you're doing? How do you let them go and hire someone 10, 15 years younger if it wasn't age discrimination? That's her allegation.
What if they had a simple falling out walk where you had issues behind the scenes?
I'm sure.
Falling out, they moved apart. Maybe again, I think there is a settling component to it, but all the things you mentioned there.
But let me say this to you. In the music industry, as we know, in Hollywood in general, there is a typical, what my wife jokes about as an upgrade. You know, people get a certain age and then they say, well, we want to go younger, whether on the screen or behind the scene, on the CD or in the studio. And I think what Miss Sparrow is saying, with all due respect, I think is, hey, I helped you build this thing, and I want to be paid accordingly and paid what I'm due. You're out here making videos and you're the star. And I think from reading the complaint and reading the articles and even knowing her, I must concede I know her and I know Diddy, I think you have to admit that she would not file this kind of suit if it was bogus or flimsy.
Well, let me ask you a question. You mentioned something very interesting. You said she wants to get paid and that they get settled. Is it really about, listen, if you're going to kick me to the curb, I want to get what's mine. You're not just going to cut me loose and leave me out there. If there's going to be a separation here in our business relationship, I need to get paid. Is this what's really about?
What my reading of it in stories, and obviously she's very limited in her comments about the case, my reading is, I helped you build this, and you promised me that once we got here, I would be in it with you, and now you're cutting the legs right out from under me because of my age, because you can go younger, cheaper, and get away with it. And I think she just said no. And we're watching in the music industry because we've never seen a case like this for $12 million.
How about seeing something like this? A rap star goes to prison for 7 months on a federal charge, who comes out, and within a few months in the rest of the game, I'm talking about T.I., who's a major star now and emerging. He gets busted now again for alleged drug possession, right? So 7 months in federal prison for some
weapons charges.
Correct. involved in a big movie, right?
Taker's number one a couple weeks ago.
So what's happening there with T.I.?
I think if you're advising T.I., you got to tell him, are you crazy? I mean, you get arrested West Hollywood with your wife, another singer, and they find allegedly either marijuana or ecstasy or some kind of methamphetamine or something in the car. Meth. And I think it's just ludicrous. It makes no sense.
He wasn't involved in the prison.
No, I said it makes no sense. I think you got to be smarter. You got to be smarter. You have this hit TV show, this hit CD, this hit movie, and you get pulled over for something like this, making a U-turn in a Maybach in West Hollywood.
He may go back to prison. It's not out of the woods yet.
He may seriously go back. The probation team,
still, right?
The probation team, they're watching now to see what was in the car. They haven't really said exactly what the pills were.
Okay.
If they find out that the pills were actually drugs, I think he's going to have a serious problem.
Keeping an eye or close watch, or segue to that, Richard Blumenthal in Connecticut, keeping a close watch on Craigslist, some of the things going on there, the allegations that there's really open prostitution on that site. It's now been censored. But this has been a big deal, sort of the age of social media, the internet, and sort of the allegation of open selling of sex online. Where's that going?
Well, Craigslist voluntarily pulled it all down, and they're putting their own censors on it. I think they're doing that due to public pressure. What we were waiting to see from a legal standpoint is on the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, whether or not as a web company they're kind of excluded from certain pressures by people who put the stuff up, who posted. The typical rule of law has been that they can kind of plead, hey, it's not us, it's the third parties. But under the state criminal laws and under people aggressive like Attorney Blumenthal, you never know what could happen. So if you're Craigslist, you make a proactive move to say, okay, we hear the pressure, we hear the children's rights groups, because there was some argument that children were potentially going to be exploited by these ads. So I think they had to do that, although we were all watching to see how it would play out under the Copyright Act.
And I'm going to say that they begrudgingly had to do that because in the 15 seconds, they're making, $43 million a year off these sexually explicit ads. So that was a moneymaker for them, which says something about that industry. Right?
Well, the question now is, if you pull that down and now it goes into the personal section of Craigslist, will you be able to identify it as easy?
Right.
So did they really kill themselves, or is it just going to move to another camouflage on their network?
Yeah, interesting. But $43 million alone just for those kind of ads, that tells you the kind of money
now, you know, Facebook, YouTube, and other, we call them ISPs or other service providers, are watching closely to see how this plays out, because there's some crazy things going on those networks as well.
All right, we'll watch closely. Also have you back, our regular contributor, James Walker, entertainment attorney, the author of this Business of Urban Music. Want to thank all our guests, Marilyn Rossetti, Abby DeJesus, and Scott Gray. You can send your show comments or requests, or even watch us again at ctnow.com/Stan, and friend us on Facebook. Become a fan of the Stan Simpson Show. We're on Twitter too. Look out for those tweets, Walk. Lori Perez and The Real Story are next for the good folks here at Fox, Connecticut. I'm Stan Simpson, and we'll see you next week.